What is going on, you lovely ladies and gentlemen of the world? Evo has come to a close with nary a person being aware of it in the first place. It was actually really weird. Up until the NA finals of Guilty Gear Strive, like I think the highest I saw the views at was like 18K for Tekken. And then Guilty Gear NA happened, and there were like almost 60K people watching. There were quite a few, so kind of weird that, because you would think, at least I would think, that more people. Well, I guess it was a terrible time, because I think Japan, like all of Japan's finals, which makes sense given the time zone that they were in, happened at like 4 a.m. Pacific time. So makes sense that that would not exactly attract the same crowd that the NA finals were, but it was just, kind of just, to me at least, when you're looking at something like that and you're thinking, if I'm going to watch Guilty Gear Strive, I'm going to watch the best Guilty Gear Strive, and that's Japan. But anyway, all that I know about Guilty Gear Strive aside from that is that the inevitable, y'all let me know, because I'm not paying attention, but y'all let me know when Giuna drops his clickbait about how Soul, we all thought Soul was broken, but where was he? Soul didn't win a single grand finals in any of the regions. He's clearly fine. Let me know when that happens, because we all know what's going to happen. But anyway, so about, number one, the online tournament, the lovely aspect of the online, of a free-to-enter online tournament. Apparently, there was around like an average of 54% of people that signed up for the tournaments, for all of the tournaments. It's not just any one. For every single game that you could sign up for, around 54% of the people never actually came, never played a single match. They all just got DQ'd. Which that's a bad time. So that doesn't really kind of paints a bad picture for potential online tournaments in the future. That, I mean, I guess you probably just want to at least put up like a cursory, hey, pay $5, pay $10 to enter this tournament or something like that, just to prevent that kind of thing from happening, because that's just so boring to have to deal with, and that would suck if, like for the majority of tournaments that you're doing moving forward, because let's be real, with everything currently going on, we're still going to be staring down the barrel of online tournaments for a while. Yeah, that'd just be bad. But anyway, let me see. Oh, one other thing that I wanted to like, thanks to the Sony sponsorship, is that My Hero Academia gacha game, does that actually have anything to do with, like, what, does it have anything to do with Sony, or My Hero Academia, The Strongest Hero? I don't know anything about it, I've never played it, but I'm kind of curious, like, why would... It is, of course, because it's... My Hero Academia is apparently owned by Sony Pictures. I didn't know that. So that makes sense why they were sponsored by it. But, like, I've seen a bunch of drama around it. Like, apparently there's some pretty scummy things going on with the game. But either way, like, that was... So it was just because of that. It's like, really? Like, out of all the things you could be sponsored by, you take a My Hero Academia cash grab gacha game? It's not really a good look moving forward, but whatever. I mean, like, a bunch of kind of NA-based stuff is really starting to grind on my nerves. This doesn't really have anything to do with Evo. But, the LCS, the league, the official League of Legends North American tournament, I can't even watch anymore because it's a fucking joke. They have, like, this, and it's only in NA that they do this, but you have, like, every single action in the game is, like, sponsored by somebody. So you get an ace, and the announcers are like, and there's your Bud Light ace of the game. Here's your Nissan Pentakill. Here's this, here's that. And it's just like, this is pathetic. Like, y'all really that desperate for sponsorship money that you gotta do this? I don't even want to watch it anymore because of that garbage. But so it's kind of this, like, I'm staring at this, and I'm like, this is gonna happen. Like, we're gonna have a My Hero Academia Perfect in the future. The 5 golden My Hero Academias is gonna happen. Like, I see it. I see it, and I don't like it, and I don't want to participate in it, because that was another thing, too. So, you had to, if you wanted to co-stream Evo, you had to sign a form. And in that, so I was thinking of doing that, because I was just thinking about maybe potentially doing, like, scoping out Skullgirls. But In that form, it specifically said you cannot trash talk. You cannot say anything negative about any of the games featured in the tournament, which is just... I don't care who you are. I don't care what you're doing. If you are making people sign contracts to ban any criticism, legitimate or not, you are on the wrong side of the argument. Straight up. And I would never agree to any of that. Because, I mean, number one, as I mentioned before in the previous Nate Talks about Evo, the entire reason why I wanted to watch most of these tournaments was for trash talk purposes. But, either way, it's just, like, just seeing that, it was like an instant shot straight through any interest I had in actually, like, really trying to get into it and hype it up and stuff like that. It was just like, you know, that basically to me screams, you know how flawed a lot of these things are. You know that there's a lot of things that people can say, that people can talk about, that do not paint these games in a positive light, and so you're just going to contractually force them to not discuss them. And that's terrible. Okay, there's going to be a super weird transition, and I apologize for that. I went off on a fat-ass tangent. I might wind up posting that tangent as just its own separate thing, but I just went off for like 10 minutes on something that didn't really have much to do with Evo, but kind of sort of had something to do with Evo. So I'm just going to replace the start of that. So what I was talking about is that Evo had a form that you could sign up for to ask for permission to co-stream, to restream the game, to restream the tournament. And one of the aspects of that application was you had to tick a box that said specifically, you cannot say anything negative about the games that are being shown. And that, like, the second I saw that, I just backed out. Like, all the interest was gone, all of it was gone. So I went off on a pretty big tangent regarding that and regarding various other things. And that's neither here nor there. So let's get back to Evo. So what did I actually talk about? I'm trying to think. So I did mention the whole, like, around 54% on average of people didn't show up for the tournaments, I believe. So they keep... One thing that's kind of weird to me. I mean... they're trying to get in-person tournaments back, right? Which I think we can more or less confirm with how COVID is currently going, how the Delta strain is popping off, how apparently I've heard, is it the Lambda strain, I think, is also starting to get kind of dangerous. Either way, you know, like we're getting a resurgence, obviously due to the circumstances around how people are treating it and how it's become a political issue. It's getting bad again. And so, like, the fact that they're all kind of hanging on and saying, like, no, yeah, we're totally going to have the real grand finals in person in November. I don't think it's going to happen. I would be very surprised if it happened. Best of luck, but it still seems kind of weird. I mean, of course, they probably just don't want people to forget about it, right? But it's still just, like, I just don't see it happening. So that little bit of a downer aside, let's see, what do I have to talk? I don't really have anything, like, why am I even talking about Evo? Like, I have so little to talk about. I actually didn't really wind up watching much of it. Because, like I said, like, I was kind of interested in watching Street Fighter V a little bit, just so I could trash talk it, but then I started watching the very first tournament. I don't even know what region it was. I think it was actually NA. But either way, I started watching it, and within, like, 30 seconds, I was just like, this isn't worth it. I don't even know why I'm here. I'ma just dip. So I didn't watch any of Street Fighter. I watched a little bit of Tekken, and I do have to say, I was really both surprised and happy with how much... I mean, this is kind of the same thing with Skullgirls, too. Well, not quite the same with Skullgirls. But there was a lot of character variation in Tekken, a lot more than I expected. And you always love to see that for any fighting game, right? That's what you dream of. As a fighting game enthusiast, as somebody that's watching tournaments, you don't want to see the top 8 where there's 6 Leroys in there. You want to see a top 8 with 8 different characters. That's the dream. That's the desire. So you're seeing a bunch of different play styles, a bunch of different characters, and it highlights all of the goodness of each of these characters that are in the game. So it was really cool to be watching. Like I said, I didn't watch all of Tekken, but I did watch a decent chunk of it. And pretty much just, I mean, it was a very wide variety. Like, shit, there was even a Miguel in there. He got bodied, but there was a Miguel in there. I was very happy to see that. But yeah, so that was really cool to see. Tekken is, despite, you know, how I talked about it earlier, it does seem to be looking pretty good right now. So good for them. But then Skullgirls was the only one I actually watched. I didn't watch all of it. I think the Latin America tournament I didn't really watch too much of, because I think that was the one that had, like, for me at least, the least interesting characters, the least interesting team compositions. And so I just kind of, like, booted up each video and was like, alright, which characters are on showcase here? Oh, it's them. Alright, let me just go to the next match. Oh, it's them. Alright, let me just go to the next match. But it was kind of weird to see, because, like, each region seemed to kind of favor, like, either a certain character or a certain set of characters, right? So, like I mentioned, one thing that I was really hoping to see, thanks to the Beowulf buffs, maybe I get to see a Beowulf for once without Big Band on their team, and then, you know, the other 50% of the time it also includes Sarabella. Maybe I'll be able to see some unique Beowulf compositions. Nah. Nah. There were no Beowulf players in the NA tournament as far as I am aware. There was one in EU. I don't think there were any in Japan either. But then Latin America had, I think, three Beowulf Big Band Sarabella players in their top 8. So apparently, like I said, like regionally there just seems to be. So like EU also had, I think, what were there 3 Valentines in EU, and then there weren't like any Valentines that I can remember, or if there was only one in all of the rest of the regions. Peacock was really that was actually, I wrote that down. Where's that little note? I don't think I'm allowed to like this game anymore with how many Peacock / Robo Fortunes I've seen. And it's kind of true. There were a lot of Peacocks. Robo Fortune fell off a little bit in the later regions. There were a decent chunk though in NA and Japan. Were there some in Europe too? I don't know, whatever, who cares. But yeah, it is kind of painful that most of the characters that I like the most also tend to be the least popular. Although there were a decent chunk of Elizas too. Almost all of them got torn apart, but they were there. It really does suck that, like, I mean, I genuinely do think Eliza is my favorite character in the game, and I've just never seen anybody actually have strong success with the character in a tournament format. Like, you hate to see that, right? You want to have belief that the character that you like has a lot of potential at a high level, and so then to see them just not perform whenever they're placed in that high level, it sucks. It definitely forces you to reconsider whether or not you actually want to invest your time in the character. If, like, even because if it's basically that kind of thing where it's like, if even people that are 10 times, 15 times, 20 times better at the game than you are can't get the character to work, what the hell do you think you're going to be able to do with them? Right? And so that just kind of sucks to see. But yeah, still, like, it was a lot of fun to watch. Unfortunately, Annie seems to be pretty overpowered. I think Annie was probably the most used character in the entire tournament. I am kind of happy. Like, I'm sick of seeing Big Band. Those were the 2 characters prior to this tournament that I just almost wanted to stop watching when I saw them, were Big Band and Double. They were everywhere. Big Band still is. He is still everywhere. I feel like you can slot him into any team comp in the game, and he improves that team comp. He's a very, very, very strong character. But whatever they did to Double, I saw very few of her. I can only think of like 3 or 4, having seen them across all the regions, which was a little surprising because, like, I mean, I haven't paid like, most of the patch notes that I read were just the ones that were specific to Beowulf and Eliza. But I can't really remember ever seeing Double's name pop up in any significant manner through the patch notes that I was paying attention to. So it is kind of a little weird to see her just kind of disappear. Whereas prior, I mean, I guess maybe if, like, everybody that was using Double just replaced her straight up with Annie, maybe that's what happened. Because that would make sense given how, again, Annie was just everywhere. Everybody was using Annie. So, you hate to see that, right? Skullgirls is now a pay-to-win game. You either buy this DLC and get the most overpowered character. I hate that in fighting games, right? That's one of the things that kind of killed my interest in Mortal Kombat X, was that every single DLC character that came out was basically stronger than the next. It was like they were all just meta-defining the entire way through. And that sucks. It will always suck. Like, it's not bad for your DLC characters to come out and be strong, But when you're looking at them and it's like, okay, this character is so, like the Kokonoe syndrome, right? Where they warp the entire game around them. And you have to learn them. So, like, again, if you want to be competitive, actually I shouldn't say again because this is probably one of the things that got cut out. One of the things that I was talking about in that bit that I'm just going to throw out was how, like, if you're a competitive player, you kind of have to just buy the DLC characters because you need to be able to lab them. You need to be able to lab their setups. You need to be able to learn how to answer them, how to beat them, and what their weaknesses are. And so it kind of sucks if you are a competitive player, if you want to be competitive in a game, but maybe you don't fully support the company, but then, like, you still have to buy into the DLC that they release in order to remain a competitive player. And so that's kind of the same thing. It's especially important if that DLC character comes out and is just blatantly overpowered and completely alters the game around them. And I'm not going to commit to Annie being that strong, but again, being that I think overall she was probably the single most often used character throughout all the regions, she's at least approaching it, right? She's towing that line. And that always sucks to see, and it does kind of sort of. So I got kind of lucky with Kokonoe, right? In that both of the characters that I played, Azrael and Tager, were two of the 8 characters in the cast who actually had some kind of an answer to Black Hole, who weren't just completely hopeless against it, right? Because like Azrael can just not phalanx cannon, he can just growler through it and then kill Kokonoe because you're Azrael. And Tager can just sledge through it and then kill Kokonoe because you're Tager. But to be fair, like, Kokonoe can just run you over and like, it's not like Tager's an answer to Kokonoe, right? She can just run you over in every single other way. Every single one of her other tools is better than anything you have. So it's not like the matchup is like, oh, well, hey, Tager has an answer to Black Hole, so Tager's the answer to Kokonoe. No. Not even close. That is a horrifically bad matchup. But yeah, I hope that doesn't wind up being, now that they are getting DLC characters in Skullgirls, where they have this season pass. I think, is it 5 characters that are supposed to be coming? Like, the next one is Umbrella, and I don't think they've announced anything beyond those characters, beyond Annie and Umbrella. But I really hope that like, Annie was a mistake, because there are definitely, I think we can agree that there are companies that intentionally release overpowered DLC characters to drive early sales, and then they balance them later on down the line once those sales have stopped. I mean, that's just it, right? Once the sales have kind of stopped, once people have stopped buying the character, now we can balance them. And it's scummy as hell to do, and I hope that isn't what's happening with Skullgirls. But again, like, I mean, that's, like, I'm not even saying that is potentially what's happening. I'm just, like, I'm spitballing completely random conspiracy theories right now, and don't take me seriously in any way, shape, or form. It's essentially what I'm saying. It's just off the cuff, like, this could be what's happening. Like, I genuinely think, I am getting jaded. I am getting more and more jaded, and I think a lot of it is deserved. Because you see so many habits in gaming right now that are being driven by people who have no actual interest in games. They're only driven by profit, and that's the only thing they're searching for. That's the only thing they want. And that leads to fairly disgusting practices. And that's one of the things that you see now, like with, or not that you see, but that's one of the kind of fears with a company like Sony grabbing hold of Evo, where it's like, okay, where's this going to go? Right? Like, are they going to ruin this? Like I mentioned, how they're, like the sponsorships they're getting, where they're, throwing in, hey, come play our extremely predatory cash grab gacha game. What else is in the future now? Right? What else are they going to be trying to get us involved in? It's a little, it's a scary concept to kind of be looking at and thinking, like, how abusive are these people going to get? Is it intentional? Are they going to be doing, like, because it's entirely accidental too, right? Like, fighting games are not easy to balance. You can look at anybody, like anything. I loved and hated looking at tier discussions on the internet, because, I mean, number one, people were always just so goddamn wrong. It's hilarious how wrong so many people are. And I'm included in that, right? I have had plenty of very like where I have overblown something, or I thought something was a much bigger problem than it was, or I have undersold something before where I thought something was not going to be a problem. So like Terumi, for instance, I told everybody within earshot that was saying Terumi sucks that they sucked. But no, Terumi sucked. But just stuff like that, right? Like, a lot of the times people have bad impressions. People don't know what they're talking about. They're not experienced enough to know what they're talking about, and so they have bad takes. And so, again, like, it's not like game developers are not going to be part of that. It's not like they know how everything interacts in their games, how every single little change is going to, what kind of waves it's going to produce once they all get put together. You just can't know, right? Sometimes some unexpected shit happens. And so sometimes a character is overpowered by mistake. But quite often a character is overpowered intentionally. And so it's, you gotta look at that and be like, alright, which one is this, right? So anyway, I don't even know why I did this about Evo, because like I don't have anything to say about Evo. I mean, you do have to kind of think Evo's kind of just over at this point. Like, I genuinely cannot see how having it under the umbrella of a massive corporation like Sony is going to result in a good thing. Like, it is going to be used for their purposes, inevitably. And so the question is, how badly is that going to actually impact the tournament itself? What's going to happen? What are they going to intentionally prevent certain games from being included? Right, so like a lot of people just kind of assume we're never going to see Smash at Evo again, right? Because, I mean, why would Sony feature a direct competitor? Same thing with like Killer Instinct, right? Killer Instinct isn't available on Sony, on anything Sony related, so would they ever allow that game specifically, or anything like it that is on, you know, like PC and Xbox, but not on PS4 or PS5, hopefully in the future? Would those games ever have a shot at being at Evo? Because that will ultimately undermine what Evo is supposed to be, which is a celebration of all things fighting games, if certain fighting games can't participate because now Sony has their own agenda and they do not want to promote products that are not Sony related or Sony owned. And so it's the same thing in the future where it's like, how about games like, because right now you also have to be looking at it like it's super difficult to feature all the games, because not all games have, like, that's one of the things. Smash online, like, we're over here shit talking Tekken's online, Street Fighter's online. Those are Guilty Gear Strive levels of enjoyable in comparison to Smash Online, except for Melee on, what is it the Dolphin emulator? Is that how it, like, somebody finagled with that a little bit to get really good connections? I know it's possible, but of course Nintendo will never support you being able to play Melee on that in an official capacity. They will never allow that in a million years, and as far as I'm aware, there's not anything similar available for Smash Ultimate. And so because of that, it makes sense for that to not be present at an online-only tournament. I get that entirely. But in the future, once, you know, either maybe for some mysterious reason Nintendo gets their heads out of their asses and creates an actual functional online environment, or more likely, in-person events do finally come back, is Smash ever going to be at Evo again? I mean, obviously, for me personally, I could not care less if Smash never winds up at another tournament, but there are a lot of people that would like for Smash to return to Evo and be kind of taken more seriously as a fighting game. But is Sony going to prevent that from happening? King of Fighters. You know, like, that's not owned by Sony. That's not something that's run by Sony. Is that going to have a chance there? Or is it because, you know, like, they have, I don't know, they're owned by Epic Games at this point now, right? Not actually, but figuratively, since I think, no, I don't think they have said anything about if King of Fighters 15 is only on the Epic Game Store, like Samurai Showdown was originally. Boy, what a terrible decision that was. Biking coming out now for Samurai Showdown, and nobody cares. I can't believe they're still releasing DLC for that game. It blows my mind. Like, who's still playing it? Genuinely. Like, people should still be playing it. It's a good enough game to still be played, but if all you have is online, why would you ever put yourself through that suffering? And so because of that, who's going to buy DLC, right? Like, oh boy, I can buy this DLC, lab this character for 15 minutes, realize that I'm never going to be able to play anybody effectively, and that was wasted money. May as well just burn that and had the same result. Okay, anyway, I'm rambling on. This is the same thing that happened with the last one. I was rambling on. But yeah, I am, like myself and many others, genuinely concerned for how Evo is going to be impacted by being owned by Sony. But of course, it doesn't really ultimately matter either, right? Like, something else can come along and take the mantle. It's not like Evo has to be the big tournament. If it does if the quality of the overall tournament does wind up being sacrificed, then we can just ignore it. And we can pick something else to be the big tournament of the year. Hopefully if that does wind up being the result of Sony taking ownership overall of the tournament series, then hopefully that is what happens. But that's another thing too, is it's like, because Skullgirls and Tekken were played on PC. But is that how it's going to be in the future? Are they going to require everything to be played on PS4/PS5 in the future? Even if the game itself is inferior, if that's the inferior environment for that game, and like the entire competitive community is on PC or something, but now they have to switch over to the PS5 for tournaments? It'd be a bad look. It would suck. Because anybody that's played, like, it's not really that big of an... Well, I mean, yeah, now, like, there are pretty significant notable differences between certain fighting games on PC and on PS4. And so if you have been playing your entire time on PC, and you've gotten accustomed to how the game plays, how the game flows on the PC, and then you switch over to PS4, and you have, like, maybe an extra 3 frames of input lag, or, whatever is different about it, that's an adjustment you have to be able to make on the fly, and it's going to sacrifice the quality of your gameplay in doing so. And thus, that will also kind of take a hit to the competitive integrity of the tournament if people are playing in a lesser environment. Is that what's going to happen because it's owned by Sony? I don't know. It's just, there's a lot of questions that are up in the air right now. But anyway, enough rambling. Thank you for listening. I'm out. Peace.